Welcome to Ecker Geopolitics. It is March 24th, 2026, and we are talking about the Iran war. We're talking about the thousands of troops being sent over to the Strait of Hormuz to fight and die for Israel, and whether or not we are going to actually be able to get out of this war. And then we're also going to be covering some of the bigger stories on X and Trump's alleged gift that was given to him for this war. So let's look at the geopolitical map and let's take a look at how everything is shaking out. What do you guys think about the Iran war? Who do you think is going to take lead? Who do you think is winning so far? Do you think America has the stronghold over this war, or do you think we have a long way to go? Do you think we're killing a lot of our ties? Do you think we're kind of ruining our relationships with other countries? Because when we look at some of these stories, these are pretty big stories. Russian position hit by FPV. That was, again, a Ukrainian drone. FPV strike on a Russian soldier nets to known wrecks. A killed person in a park after a Russian drone or missile attack near the regional area. The NTSB, oh, yeah, see, we're always moving fast with the info. So this is called glint.trade. This is what I use to follow the geopolitical situation, kind of monitor and see what's really going on, because there really is just a lot going on. There's a lot of information, lots of news, and so I like to use glint to follow some of those stories. That's what this does. Essentially, all these little blips that you see on the screen are news stories, and basically designed to keep you updated on what's going on in the war. So we're going to look at some of this. We're going to look at some of these stories and what's kind of happening in the media. But there's a lot of big news, a lot of big events, a lot of big stories unfolding. The downfall of how Edwards Review, Martin Clunes, is far too gone. And then in January, President Trump vowed to secure the release of Dennis Coyle. Today, after more than a year of captivity in Afghanistan, Dennis Coyle is free and heading home to America. Another promise made, promise kept. So as we look at all of the maps here and we see what's actually going on, we see that the geopolitical situation is getting more tense. Trump wants to double down on the Strait of Hormuz. He wants to send troops there, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about some of these bigger articles here, some of these stories, and what this really means for the war, what this really means for the United States. Live updates: U.S. to deploy around 1,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East. That's pretty big news. The United States military is preparing to deploy around 1,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East in the coming days, according to a person with knowledge of the move who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive military plans. It's the latest addition of American troops after U.S. officials last week said thousands of Marines aboard several Navy ships and will be heading to the region. While the Marine units are trained in missions that include supporting U.S. embassies, evacuating civilians, and disaster relief, the soldiers of the 82nd Airborne are trained to parachute into hostile or contested territory to secure key territory and airfields. The Israeli airstrikes battered Iran as Iranian missiles and drones struck sites across the Middle East, hitting power plants and lines in Kuwait, targeting Saudi Arabia's oil-rich eastern province, and firing at least 12 waves at Israel. Lebanese military fire into northern Israel killed a woman, medics said, in the war's first death inside of Israel from cross-border drone and missile attacks. Israel has pounded Beirut, meanwhile saying it's targeted infrastructure used by the Iran-linked Hezbollah militant group. Alluding to progress in talks with Iran, U.S. President Donald Trump claimed Iran shared an oil and gas-related present, a day after telling reporters that the Middle Eastern nation is eager for a deal to end the war. Trump said Monday his son-in-law Jared Kushner and U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff held talks with an unnamed Iranian leader. Though he said the U.S. hasn't talked to the supreme leader, Iran denied that such talks were even taking place. The death toll from the war has risen above more than 1,500 people in Iran, over 1,000 people in Lebanon, 16 in Israel, and 13 U.S. military members, as well as a number of civilians on land and in sea in the Gulf region. Millions of people in Lebanon and Iran have been displaced, and UN peacemakers in southern Lebanon report intense gunfire and explosions as Israeli ground forces fight Hezbollah militants. And that's the narrative they say, that Israel is fighting Hezbollah and Hamas in Lebanon, so that's why they're in Lebanon. No, Israel is in Lebanon because they're settling those grounds. They're taking it over just the same way they did to Gaza, and the way that they want to do it to the United States and all of these different regimes. 7 regime changes in 5 years. That is the Greater Israel Project. That's what's happening here. Trump says Iran wants to make a deal, but the Islamic Republic denies any talks. And so, again, all of this is doublespeak. So a lot of this is really because Trump wants to he wants to double down on this war for Iran. He wants the Middle East. He wants Iran. And so with all of this being said, he's going to bluff and he's going to puff until he can no more, right? That is really what the strategy of the U.S. Washington, D.C. Cabinet is right now. That's kind of what's going on. They want this war to continue. U.S. President Donald Trump has extended his deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, saying the U.S. will hold off striking power plants in the country for 5 days. Again, that's perfectly enough time to send the Marines there, right? And a lot of people are saying that. It takes exactly 5 days to get the Marines over to the Strait of Hormuz. So that's what's happening right now. They're in logistics on their way to the Strait of Hormuz. This is Trump buying time. And again, also when these markets are basically down. Trump also held out possibility of a resolution to the war, though Iranian officials denied there were any negotiations. Trump later told reporters that the U.S. envoys have been holding talks with a respected Iranian leader. And again, we don't know who this leader is. We don't know if any of this is even true. Relief ripped through financial markets Monday as oil prices eased and stock prices jumped on Wall Street following severe losses everywhere in the world prior to Trump's announcements, which was timed before U.S. markets opened. The death toll from this war has risen above 1,500 people in Iran, and yeah, we covered all of that. So, how is it affecting the crypto markets? How is it affecting all of the financial markets, right? That is what we want to look at. We want to look at how all of this actually connects. How does this actually remain relevant to the financial markets to date? And how does this actually impact the United States economy? We got Bitcoin at $70,732. We have XRP at $1.40. And ultimately, we see that crypto is remaining strong. People are desiring it still, and there is a positive outlook on crypto. Ultimately, I think crypto is going to be one of the main ways that we stay solvent as a country. I think there was a lot of articles out recently saying that basically the United States is insolvent, and we covered that in this morning's episode. If you look at the Brendan Ecker YouTube channel, we covered a lot of that. But we're seeing that the crypto markets it looks like the crypto markets are becoming the last reliable resource for the government to really make money. Right. And so for the average American and retail investor to make money, we know that the Clarity Act just passed. We know that Poly Market is essentially predicting that that is very likely to pass. So the crypto market's looking pretty good after all of this. Right. After the gold and precious metals markets are pretty much kind of teeter-tottering. Gold is at $4,496.70. Silver is at $72.36. Platinum's at $1,954.10, and palladium's at $1,472.60. So these markets are moving. Crude oil today was pretty much balanced because of Trump's statements. Basically, everything Trump had to say about the entire Iran war, basically it let us know that a lot of what was going on in the market is pretty much normal behavior and normal reaction to what Trump really had to say about it. Right, so the crude oil markets, again, those prices are already starting to go up, it looks like. Okay, Brent last day financial futures ended at $100.29, and then crude oil ended at $88.61. So coming back to balance, but I still see at some point, probably at the end of this week, Trump is going to strike Iran. There's going to be some kind of attack on the desalinization bases of either Israel or Iran is going to get attacks on them from the U.S. Expeditionary Forces, the Marines, which are being sent out. So one of these things are going to happen. It's going to happen probably towards the end of the week when the market closes, and then that's going to be the big story of the weekend. And it'll probably affect the price of oil. It'll probably send that price well above over $100 a barrel. So eventually, I think oil will probably exceed $200 a barrel. But it all depends on what happens with this war, right? These were the statements made by Donald Trump today on basically stating that Iran's leader sent him a gift as part of proving who is really in control. The present related to oil and gas arrived today worth a tremendous amount of money. So this was a pretty big statement made by Trump. What do you guys have to say about this? Let's take a look at this video, see what Trump had to say here.
Because they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present. And the present arrived today. It was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize, and they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it, so that meant
What was
one
it,
thing to
Karg
me,
Island,
we're
maybe?
dealing with the right people. No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did. But what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people. Because, you know, you don't know, because the leadership was killed, all gone. Khomeini, all gone, as the expression goes, the past supreme leader. And then the new supreme leader was racked up, at a minimum racked up pretty good, and everyone else was gone. And then
Crazy.
many
What
of
do
the
you guys
people in
think's
the
going to
third
happen
tier,
with that? So that was
because
Trump's
they're gonna
statements
make
on
a
the
deal.
gift
They're
that
gonna
was
make
given
a
to
deal.
him, whatever
They
that
did
might be.
something yesterday that
What do you
was
guys think
amazing,
that gift
actually.
is? I honestly think that gift could very likely be Karg Island, maybe some kind of maybe some piece of land somewhere in the Strait of Hormuz, so the United States can continue to make profits and generate something. Who knows? Ultimately, we're going to find out. Only time will really tell, right? But a lot of big stories that are happening on X, a lot of big events that are unfolding. Again, when it comes to the breaking news in the algorithm today, the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon says that he has received word from Israel that they would spare Christian villages in South Lebanon, but they could not guarantee even this. Shia villages, presumably, will be ethnically cleansed and destroyed without opposition. Yeah, so they say Hezbollah is behind all of these islands being completely destroyed, or Lebanon and this territory being completely destroyed and attacked. Yeah, so that's the excuse, Hamas and Hezbollah. But who created Hamas and Hezbollah? Well, it was the state of Israel, wasn't it? So once we know that the excuse of the jihad and the Islam and trying to fight all of that, well, it's like, well, it was created by Israel Mossad. And now we have these people settling Lebanon, Christian villages, blowing them up. Imagine your hometown, which has a Christian church in it, and a bunch of Israelis are blowing it to pieces. This is what's happening.
أنا على وصلتي لما وصلت عند البطرك قلت له قبل ما أنت تسألني أنا رح أقول لك.
Before you ask me, I will tell you, he says. I told him that from day one.
نحن سألنا وسألنا الإسرائيلية.
We asked the Israelis and told them, please do us a favor and leave us the Christian villages in the south. We received from them that they had decided not to attack Christian villages. But at the same time, they said we can't guarantee this if there are complications regarding these villages. Yeah, so basically said we're going to just destroy these Christian villages because it doesn't go with our religion of Judaism. We have asked these Lebanese army to send us units into the heart of these villages so they can protect and monitor everything. Currently, everything is fine. But how are things progressing now? I don't know. I went to the patriarch and told him, before you ask me, I will tell you. I told him that from day one. We asked the Israelis and told, okay, so that was again, that was the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon basically stating that they received word from Israel that they wouldn't be attacking Christian villages, but then we have all these videos of Israel quite literally attacking Christian villages, blowing them to pieces, and doing really exactly what they did to Gaza, not learning their lesson at all, right? So this is why I hope Iran destroys Israel. I hope Iran succeeds in their endeavors, because what Israel is doing to Lebanon is pure terrorism. And what Israel is doing to Gaza is pure terrorism. And what they want to do to the United States, and what they're doing to Argentina, what they're doing to the entire world, essentially with all of these different attacks, coordinated, proven to be them in many cases. Yeah, there needs to be retribution. There should be some level of revenge. And the Israeli people, sorry, but your people are causing this entire planet to burn. And so I hope the Iranian regime completely topples Israel, because Israel is getting the United States and every other country involved in their war, and they're not even fighting in it. They're over trying to settle Lebanon as every other country is fighting for their country, especially the United States. So how embarrassing, how humiliating. And I think the state of Israel should be completely just wiped out. Honestly. And of course, not the innocent people, not the people who are good, obviously, the Palestinians. Obviously, I don't believe these people should be harmed. But my gosh, guys, this is just crazy. The evil of the Israeli Zionists today, there needs to be some form of accountability. So going on, breaking news, Spain will recognize the state of Palestine with the, East Jerusalem as its capital. That's a major diplomatic shift. Let's see how Israel responds.
Good morning. I would like to inform you that at the meeting of the Council of Ministers
This is a very
that will
big
be
statement.
held today, the government of Spain will approve the official recognition of Palestine as a state. With this decision, Spain joins the more than 140 countries that already recognize Palestine. This is a
Israel's going to hate that.
decision that has a single goal: to contribute to achieving peace between Israelis and Palestinians.
Yeah, well, that's never going to happen because it's not in the Israeli people's interest to live with these people. They've lived with the Palestinian people since 1947, and they have basically terrorized them every single day since. November 12, 2023, a Palestinian mother holding hands with her son evacuating northern Gaza is seen being executed by Israeli terrorists. Yeah. So this was a Palestinian mother surrendering, white flag in her hand, and she's shot dead by the Israelis. And these are the people we're supposed to feel bad for. These are the people you're not allowed to say anything about in school. As a police officer, you're not supposed to say anything about this, but I say fuck that. This is the truth. This is what's happening. This is what is happening, and we can never allow this kind of behavior to happen in our country. The Israeli Zionist people should be held accountable for this, and these are war crimes. This goes against the Geneva Convention that they created in World War II, and they want to talk about the Holocaust. The Jewish people want to talk about the Holocaust and how hard it was for them, how bad it was for them, how badly they were persecuted, and then they want to go and do the same thing to other people, innocents, who have less resources than them. Please, it's cowardice, and the Israeli people should be ashamed of themselves, and you will fail. You will be defeated by justice, and you will be defeated by the truth. Going on to the next story, Brentwood police say Reacher star Alan Richardson acted in self-defense, say no charges will be filed. The development comes as new footage appears to show Richardson's neighbor blocking the road while he was on his motorcycle. After reviewing the evidence, lost my spot there. After reviewing the available evidence, including video footage and witness statements, authorities determined that no criminal charges will be pursued. Said that Brentwood Police Department, Mr. Richwood's actions were found to be in self-defense. Although a potential reckless endangerment charge was considered, Mr. Richardson declined to pursue the charges. So let's take a look at this video. This is Jack Reacher, essentially, and everything that happened with that.
Stand in front of a fucking bike again.
So again, this is the Jack Reacher guy, the guy who played that entire character. Yeah, I mean, from the looks of it, this guy comes out from his house, stands right in front of Alan's bike, gets in his way, so immediately provokes him into an argument. He's screaming at him from the very beginning. Then Alan says, "Really, dude? You stand in front of my bike? Really?" And then the guy's already pointing at him. He's already squared off right now, as we can see.
Are you fucking kidding me, bro? For what? For what? For what? Stand in front of a fucking bike again, dude. But doing what? You threatened my fucking safety, bro. Are you kidding me? I should knock you the fuck out right now. Go ahead, knock me out.
Yeah, so obviously what I think happened, probably Alan Richardson was probably driving through the neighborhood with the bikes with his kids, probably being pretty loud.
Like a fucking lunatic. There's kids running around here. Go ahead. It's all on camera. Go ahead. Are you drunk right now, bro? Go ahead.
What do you guys think happened with
Go
this?
ahead. Call the police. Out of your fucking mind, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I will say as a cop, like from the video footage, we see that he stepped out in front of Alan Richardson's bike. We see that he stepped out in front of this guy first. However, at the same time, it's not illegal to be driving your dirt bikes as long as you got the stickers, you got everything you need. It's not really illegal to be driving through a neighborhood. The question is whether or not you committed some kind of noise ordinance violation, right? And so when the neighbor's coming out, they stop in front of your vehicle, they get you off of the bike. If it wasn't for that happening, Alan Richardson would have never gotten off the bike. The guy could have waved, he could have called the police, he could have complained on Alan and said, hey, he's driving through the neighborhood, he's being really loud. But no, he instead chose to stand right in front of Alan and basically right in front of his children and provoke this entire thing. So even though it's annoying that your neighbors are driving bikes in your neighborhood, it's not a crime to. And so the best way to handle this, you got to call the police. You don't try to handle it yourself.
Go ahead, help me out. Go ahead, I called the police. Unbelievable, dude. I called the police. It's on camera. You're riding around here like a fucking lunatic. I should have run you over, dude.
I should have run you over.
You did. I'm in my house, taking my bike. You're You're driving around like a fucking lunatic. I called the police.
Oh, man. He just called Jack Reacher a pussy. Accelerates the engine. Okay, so clearly it looks like this guy was grabbing him. We saw the other video already where Alan gave him a few good shots. So he gives him one good shot there. Gives him a second there. Third there. Stay down, dude. The guy's like 6'7". This dude's like 6'5", 6'6". He's huge. He's a monster. He's like a total beast. I would not be messing with this guy. Yeah, this guy just ain't leaving him alone. So he definitely, obviously this is an incident of how great it is to have neighbors, right? This is what happens when you have neighbors. You got to just adhere to the neighborhood, you know? At the end of the day, even though Alan was probably the one who caused all of this, honestly, just driving a little bit erratically through the neighborhood. Yeah, it's kind of easy to believe that this guy would be freaking out because he is a Brit. They're always the Brits that are getting mad. Crazy. So what do you guys think about that video? Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? Was Jack Reacher in the wrong or was Jack Reacher in the right? It's kind of hard to tell. So that was that story. Yep, and then these were the comments. Going on and back to the breaking news, let's look at some of these other headlines here. What do you guys think? Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen next when it comes to the Iran war. I think we're going to be in this war for a long time. I think there's really no doubt about it. Again, that was funny. The Oakland County Sheriff, he's been getting all butthurt because everybody has been they were making anti-Semitic memes against the Oakland County Sheriff, and so the Oakland County Sheriff was, he got all butthurt, and apparently, he caused this guy to go to jail, and it's like, dude, you're violating the First Amendment. Like, seriously, people can have an opinion. Oakland County Sheriff's office. Anyways, we'll get to that story in a second. The Army just loosened its enlistment standards in the middle of a war. Maximum enlistment age raised to 42 years old for both new recruits and prior service. Single marijuana conviction no longer requires a waiver. Isn't that great? Oh, isn't that so convenient? Nobody expands the recruiting pool during this period. So look at that. So let's take a look at this summary of change for the conscription requirements for basically getting drafted, right? So let's take a look. Regular Army and Reserve Components Enlisted Program. The expedited revision dated the 20th of March, 2026 removes Commander, U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Commander's role as mission commander of accessions planning and execution and assigns the responsibility to Commanding General, U.S. Army Recruiting Command. Increases the maximum enlistment age up to and including age 42 for non-prior service applicants. Yeah, just saying right now, I'll never be getting drafted into a war to fight for Israel. I will fight Israel before I'll ever fight for Israel. I will fight the state of Israel before I'll ever fight for Israel. I will aid the Iranians before I ever aid the Israelis. I will aid the enemies to Israel before I ever aid Israel. So I will never be drafted. If they drafted me, it would be foolish because I will do everything I can to give all of the best possible intelligence to the enemy, Iran, so that they can literally take care of Israel and deal with these people who are getting Americans involved into this war, of which we should have no involvement in. Updates policy on documents that can be used as proof to verify applicants' social security numbers. Revises policy governing enlisting and processing of applicants to comply with current procurement, physical, and medical standards prescribed in AR 40 to 501. Increases the maximum enlistment age up into 42 years old for applicants with no prior military service. eliminates requirement of a waiver for a single conviction of possession of marijuana or a single conviction of possession of drug paraphernalia. Adds major misconduct waiver, approval authority to commanding general, United States Army Division for Regulatory Army, and U.S. Army Reserve applicants of Chief National Guard Bureau of Army National Guard applicants. So, what do you guys think about that? Now the age is basically being risen. So if you're 42 years old, you are young enough, my friend, to fight for the state of Israel. And I bet nobody's going to do it. Again, personally, I will never fight and die for the state of Israel. If the U.S. government came to my house right now and tried to draft me, I would go out of my way to resist and to become a complete hellstorm. They would never be able to contain me. If they ever tried to get me to fight and die for the state of Israel, again, I would aid my enemies. I would actually give information and intelligence to the Iranians. I would make it my mission to make sure that Israel was defeated in this entire war. Right? Kind of like now. Total madness in Tel Aviv. Settlers are losing their minds and collapsing in pure terror every time the sirens wail. The psychological collapse is real as the relentless sirens drive the city into absolute hysteria. Let's take a look at this video. This is happening in Israel right now. Yeah, these sirens have been going off like day and night. And so it's driving the Israeli people pretty much crazy. They're losing their minds. Rightfully so. What they've done to Gaza, what the Israelis have done to Gaza, and nobody says anything about it, because Trump doesn't say anything about it, just because he's in the Epstein files, none of these other politicians say anything about it. It's shameful. These Israelis, these Zionists specifically, we're not talking about all Jewish people, we're talking about the Zionists, though. They truly want to carry out this greater Israel project. They really do want to see the Pax Judaica operation happen. So now these people are used to sirens going in their city all day long. And now it's starting to make a real impact on them. People are losing it. Again, rightfully so. Everything that they did to the Palestinians, what they're doing to the Lebanese people right now, thinking that they can have settle this land, totally wrong. And she's just dancing. So the Israeli people are losing their minds. It's looking like the real-life purge in Palestine, in Israel, Tel Aviv, right now. Very sad to see. But this is what happens when you are a godless nation. This is what happens when you believe in no law and order. This is what happens when you believe in genociding an entire race of people. The Jewish people complain and they cry about the Holocaust and what the Nazis did to them, allegedly. And then they go and turn around and do this to the Palestinians of whom they have lived with since 1947. I never want to hear from the Jews about the Holocaust again. You have no more sympathy. You've ruined this entire argument for yourselves. You can never talk about the Holocaust again and actually get people to feel sorry for you ever again. After everything you've done to Gaza, after everything you've done to Lebanon, now you should be the ones who feel the fury of yourselves. You should feel the pain of what you have done to these people. For especially, you should be ashamed of yourself as the Jewish people for being a ethnocentricity of people who has been allegedly, in your own words, persecuted for all these years and decades, and here you go and turn around and do it to an innocent people. Christians, nonetheless. How cowardly of you. You will be defeated. The information war will not be on your side. History will not be on your side, and you will be put in your place. And I hope Iran completely obliterates the state of Tel Aviv in efforts to completely stop this war, because it's the only way that it's going to happen. The Greater Israel Project is going to continue as long as the Zionists continue their movements to basically settle all of these areas like Lebanon and all of the 7 different regimes, right? Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. Okay, we have Israel, and then we have Ukraine, we have Turkey, we have all these different nations, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, the UAE. They want that entire area for their own trade. And the Israeli people want this for their Greater Israel Project. That's what this is all about. That's why you're seeing a push on Lebanon, while the Israeli people are getting attacked by Iran, while you're seeing all of these missile strikes. So let's take a look at this video from Alex Barnicoat, where he's breaking down what just happened an hour ago. The Saudi Arabia just got exposed and lied about Iran. So what do you think about this video? Let's check this out. He's been covering the news. Be sure to give him a follow. He has great content and great coverage of the war.
Saudi Arabia just got exposed and they lied about Iran. Well, today, Saudi Arabia came out and said that they don't think Iran is a very Islamic country. The Saudi foreign minister said, quote, "I do not understand how Iran can claim to defend Islamic causes whilst also attacking Islamic countries." And yes, Iran is carrying out drone and missile attacks onto countries which are Islamic in the Middle East, whether it's the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, etc. They are. The problem is, Saudi Arabia here has a very big double standard. In fact, before the war in Iran, Saudi Arabia always claimed they would never allow the US to use their territory.
Everything is always just lagging on all of this stuff. So this whole time I thought our monitor was going. We weren't.
Saudi Arabia just got exposed and they lied about Iran. Well, today, Saudi Arabia came out and said that they don't think Iran is a very Islamic country. The Saudi foreign minister said, quote, "I do not understand how Iran can claim to defend Islamic causes whilst also attacking Islamic countries." And yes, Iran is carrying out drone and missile attacks onto countries which are Islamic in the Middle East, whether it's the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, etc. They are. The problem is, Saudi Arabia here has a very big double standard. In fact, before the war in Iran, Saudi Arabia always claimed that they would never allow the US to use their territory to carry out attacks onto Iran. They said they weren't allowing any American military equipment to be delivered there either. The problem is, since the war started, Saudi Arabia has completely done the opposite, and they're allowing the US to use their country and their territory to carry out attacks onto Iran. Saudi Arabia is doing the exact same thing they're accusing Iran of doing. And it's not like Saudi Arabia changed their mind. They were literally lying about it before the war. Before the war started, America was landing dozens of...
Yeah, that's crazy. The Saudi Arabia and Qatar, they chose the side of the United States. They chose to side with the USA instead of siding with Iran and Iraq. And so obviously that's why they've been getting hit pretty hard.
Fueling planes and fighter jets in Saudi Arabia's military base. Saudi Arabia knew what these were being delivered there for because they have good intelligence. However, officially, Saudi Arabia wasn't allowing them to land there, even though they were, and they were in the base. We have satellite proof of that. And so, Saudi Arabia today has accused Iran of not being an Islamic country because they're attacking Islamic countries. However, Saudi Arabia says that whilst literally allowing the US to carry out attacks onto another Islamic country. And so there's a huge double standard here. It's something that you need to know about, because this is the type of stuff that we only know due to satellite images and deep
100%.
investigative research.
So be sure to give him a follow.
You the time of doing.
Be sure to give Alex Barnicoat a follow. He's been covering a lot of good stuff. Starting April 20th, 2026, the U.S. Army will raise the maximum enlistment age from 34 to 42 years old. Yep, we just covered that. Removing the waiver requirement for individuals with a single prior conviction for marijuana. Yeah, I don't think that's going to end up going well. None of this is going to go well for the United States.
That when he sends his warfighters out to fight, he unties their hands to actually go out and close with and destroy the enemy as
Listen to this
as
genius
from moment one. And that's why we see ourselves as part of this negotiation as well. We negotiate with bombs. You have a choice as we loiter over the
We
top
negotiate
of
with
Tehran,
bombs, he says.
Yeah,
that's a real high IQ statement. Yeah, that's really going to come off well across the other side of the earth against our trade partners. Look at Trump. He looks like, dude, why are you so dumb? Why did you even just say that? Look at that.
Future. The president has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to
Look at
ensure
Trump.
that.
He just
And so
does
we're
not
keeping
trust him at all.
Our hand on that throttle, as long as hard as is necessary, to ensure the interests of the United States of America are achieved on that battlefield. This is not Iraq and Afghanistan. This is not a president who's interested in vague end states. He's been very clear with us about what we need to accomplish, creating the conditions for them never to have a nuclear capability, and that's exactly what we're doing in historic fashion.
How does it feel to be Israel's bitch? How does it feel to be Israel's little pocket girl? Like, literally, man. Like, just doing whatever Israel needs them to do. These guys are just doing it. Because what are they implicated? Like, what do they have on Trump? What do they have on this administration? That's my question.
Disappointed. I don't want to say this, but I have to. I said, Pete and General Raisin Kane, I think.
Yeah, so big statements. Wall Street energy specialist has issued warning to American citizens Trump's Iran war is about to trigger the biggest oil shortage the U.S. has ever seen, worse than 1973 or 79 combined.
In 79 combined. So he himself
take a look.
said it's going to be real shortage. Again, we're talking the biggest supply disruption the world's ever seen. I'm going to even quote Fatih Barol, who said, he's the head of the IEA, who said this is the biggest disruption of both 73 and 79 combined. So he himself says this thing's really big. You can't expect that this is not going to have a physical impact. The physical market is really going to bite sometime in the next couple of weeks. I mean, the reason why China is protected right now, they've been hoarding for years, built up a huge stockpile in anticipation for an event like this. And that's what the SPR was created for, but we drew it down in
Okay, so isn't that funny how they always like to make people believe that we are scarce in oil? Like, we don't have a lot of oil. Like, actually, we do. We just took Venezuela. We're about to take Cuba. And we also are we are oil enriched ourselves as a country. A lot of people don't know that. We have a total oil supply. This is just the U.S. propaganda machine pumping so that they can get us into this war and basically get the American people on board with fighting and dying for the state of Israel so Israel can profit further.
And so when we look at consumers, I mean, you go back to the 70s, people were building fuel tanks in their backyards to be able to supply their
and oil's going to go way above $200 a barrel. So
it's underway.
That's just coming. No doubt in my mind about that. Bombshell leaked audio. Arizona RNC committee woman Liz Harris claims the TPUSA is controlled by the Mossad. Harris also names Alex Jones and Steve Bannon as Mossad assets. I think we always knew that about a lot of these people, but let's take a listen.
The other very delicate thing we have going on is all this stuff with Israel. Now, Thaler is Jewish, Breger is Jewish. Like, when I say Jewish, I mean, like, not, they're very Jewish, meaning Bev Goldstein, like, there's so many names I can throw out that I do believe when we look at Turning Point and we look at all of this, I do see Mossad. I see.
Yeah, of course.
There's so many other things where I'm connecting dots. I think
Charlie Kirk even admitted that his Secret Service or that his security team was Israeli, like they were like literally Israeli. He had an Israeli security team, and they were the ones guarding him.
Alex Jones is controlled by them. Charlie Kirk's controlled.
Yeah, Alex Jones is controlled by Mossad via Genesis Communications, and so that's where a lot of that info comes from. But at the end of the day, Alex Jones, you know, he's been at the forefront of the media and our syndicated talk show radio for his entire life. A. B. His father was in the CIA. So he's close and connected to the intelligence agencies. And not everybody who works for the CIA is bad, right? Tucker Carlson's father also worked for the CIA. It doesn't mean you're bad to work for the CIA. It doesn't mean you have anything. There's nothing against you for working in the CIA. Joe Kent worked for the CIA. The issue is when you start working in the interests of the version of the CIA for Israel, which is the Mossad. Okay, that is like more when it becomes a problem. When you start entangling operations, U.S. operations with Israeli operations, then you get a situation like JFK where JFK is killed. And then suddenly you have a mingling between the CIA and Mossad.
By them, Steve Bannon.
Oh, yeah, Steve Bannon for sure. Steve Bannon was in the Epstein files. He was all over the Epstein files. And Jeffrey Epstein even called Steve Bannon an honorary Jew because Steve Bannon was trying to become, because he wasn't a Jew, but he wanted to be called a Jew so he could be in this group and fit in with these people. I don't even know. Weird stuff. Just really total sellouts of this country.
I can't believe nobody's killed me. I really can't.
Because they've already won.
I have no idea why.
They don't need to.
Because God is protecting right now. There's a lot of people that are surprised are not dead right now, but nobody gets to do anything unless God gives them permission.
Dude, it's because they've already won. The Mossad has already won. They've already placed. They are already in checkmate. They have already played the game while nobody else was playing. Okay, they played Donald Trump. They got him to do stupid shit. They got all of these politicians to do stupid stuff and corrupt themselves. They got these people to send text messages they'd never send. They got these people to send pictures they'd never send. They got people to go to parties they'd never go to say things they'd never say, all on camera. All these things done to them and done to other people, done to innocent kids. They got all of these people to do this stuff on camera, and now they own them, and whatever they say goes, because if they don't do whatever they are told by Mossad, then you are killed and you are assassinated. And so this is what's happening to the United States today.
I'm with you, Liz. I mean, I've already had people show up to my door from what I've exposed, but I'm still alive. We're meant to be alive.
They're not going to kill you if they can use you later. You know, that's kind of how this stuff works. They use you. They use the intelligence. They use the data. They kind of wait till you have a big enough platform. They wait until you're a big enough personality, right? That's when the Mossad strikes. That's when all these people start, coming at you. According to the multiple U.S. sources, at least 7,000 Marines and up to 3,000 paratroopers are deploying to the Middle East. Wow, I thought that was only 1,000. An unspecified number of special forces, 75th Rangers, Delta Force, 160th SOAR, SEALs, are also reportedly being deployed. If Trump's talks fail, it looks like he's getting ready to drop the hammer with boots on the ground. Yeah, and then we're in a 20-year war. Like, that's not going to help anybody. We'll kill a few supreme leaders. We'll kill some of the Ayatollah's leadership. And that's the agenda of Trump. He wants to essentially scare the Iranian regime into backing down so that we can take back that oil, so we can regain that control in that area. But Iran's just going to this is a war of attrition. So they are just going to keep staying alive. They're going to just keep restockpiling, and it's just going to be back and forth, just like we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's just going to be back and forth, months on months on months, restocking up on ammo, supplies, bombs, missiles, putting new boots on ground and just recycling it out. And then you're going to see the draft come out. You're going to see what you saw in Ukraine, where grown men are being dragged into white vans. And I'll tell you what, they ever try that with me, you're going to die. If you ever try to take me into a white van and you try to recruit me into a war, you're going to be killed. I'm going to bite your neck out. You're never going to succeed. Like, if you were ever to do that to me, if anybody were to ever try to recruit me into a war and force me into a war that I have no intention of fighting in, especially one for the state of Israel, to fight for Israel, no. I would rather serve the Iranian people. I would rather fight for them, quite literally. Okay, I'd rather fight for America first, personally, and that's the ultimate fight, is to fight for America first. But as soon as you have a tyranny who wants you to go, they want to start throwing you inside of white vans so you can start going to die by C4 drones in these open fields in the Middle East and just get totally dominated, just like we did in Vietnam, so that these presidents and politicians can have statues made of them. Fuck that. Like, no, how about you send Barron Trump to go fight in this war? How about Pete Hegseth, you go and fight in this war, badass? Okay, you tattoo slinging badass, you think you're so great? You go fight. You go fight, tough guy. That's what I say. All these politicians who want to, Lindsey Graham, you go fight and die for Israel. Let's see what you can do, buddy. Have you ever gone through the Marine Corps training? You ever gone through military training? Have you ever been a police officer? You ever really served your country? No. Go and do it yourself. None of these men will, because they're not men. They're all owned. These are all sock puppets, and that's what the Mossad calls them. That's what the Mossad calls them. Sock puppets, goyim, because they're idiots. They're fools, and they'll do whatever they got to do to basically fall right into line. And to basically, be at the bequest of Israel, no matter what, under all costs, because they don't want their shit getting out. The stuff that they did on camera to little kids in particular, like Donald Trump, that's what's happening right now to our whole country.
We've won this. This war has been won. The only
Again, I also think Trump is getting bad intel, obviously.
The New York Times, it's like we're not winning a war where they have no Navy and they have no Air Force and they have no nothing. And we literally have planes flying over Tehran and other parts of their country. They can't do a thing about it. For instance, if I want to take down that power plant, that very big, powerful power plant, they can't do a thing about it. It's
well,
like,
why tell them that?
That's
Why
all.
tell them that? So that's the psychological effects of how Trump really rolls, right? He's going to say all this stuff. He's going to make these threats. He's going to do all of this intentionally, specifically to throw the Iranian people off. Okay, and then maybe by the end of the week, he'll actually change his mind and do the complete opposite. Maybe we'll actually be pulling people out. We never know when it comes to Trump because he's one of the best at completely playing a game that you don't think he's going to be playing.
They can do. And yet, if you read the New York Times or if you watch ABC fake news or NBC fake news, you'd say it's a close battle. It's not a close battle. We've won this war.
Yeah, so, I mean, I wouldn't say we've won because if we won, there wouldn't be U.S. soldiers dying. Israel wouldn't be settling Lebanon and knocking out buildings right now just like they did to the Twin Towers, right? Israel just released footage of last night's attack on South Lebanon where they demolished an entire town. After getting away with genocide, Israel is emboldened and openly bragging about their war crimes. They are stealing South Lebanon right now, and no one is stopping them. And again, what does that look like? That, to me, looks a lot like the Twin Towers, doesn't it? All the geniuses out there who want to say, oh, yeah, 9/11, that was those Muslims. Oh, yeah, well, to me, this looks like exactly what we saw on 9/11. Look at those buildings fall down. That doesn't look exactly like the World Trade Center or the Twin Towers, does it? Right here. Look at that. Whoa, right on top of each other. How did that happen? It's almost like it was demolition. It's almost like it was planned. Exposed. Mark Levin just said 1,000 dead IDF equals tens of thousands of our soldiers. What the fuck are you even doing in our country then, old man? Yeah, that's totally what I agree with. So let's listen to this guy.
The American
listen
media
to this crazy nutcase.
The Western media
Mark
doesn't
Levin,
give a damn.
traitor.
No other country in the world has fed the citizens of an enemy that is still in an active war. None. Israel is fighting Hamas. Do you know how many IDF soldiers it's lost? No, you don't. Why?
Israel created Hamas.
Because the American media doesn't give a damn. The Western media doesn't give a damn. Who are these IDF soldiers? They're young men and women. They're the citizens of Israel. They come out of the restaurants and cafes. They're plumbers. They're electricians. They're truck drivers. They're doctors and nurses. They're regular people. How many of them have died? Nobody wants to know. Almost 1,000. Oh, Mark, 1,000? It's a nation of 9 million people. That would be like tens of thousands of our soldiers dying, on top of tens and tens of thousands of Israelis who were slaughtered by Hamas.
So 1,000 dead IDF equals tens of thousands of our soldiers? The fuck are you doing in our country, man? Why don't you go over there and help them then? You understand we're all human, right? You understand that one person equals one person, unless you're just a moral piece of shit. What do I even say to this?
Seriously.
No other country.
What you say to it is, screw you, Mark Levin. You are not an American. You are not a man. And you can go fight and die for Israel yourself. You're not going to get the American people to do it for you, buddy. And that's what I say to the Jews like Mark Levin who want to throw the American people under the bus and make them do the work. How about, no, you go and fight and die for your own war. You go and do it. And you go and suffer and have to deal with the genocide that you created and that now is going to come upon your people. That is what I say to the Israeli people. The UK government is trying to close me down. They are furious that I'm showing people how to structure their taxes and create wealth. Therefore, I'm no longer selling my course. I'm giving it away for free. So, again, marketing campaign or not, you're seeing a lot of this kind of censorship.
Rich people do. It's what the MPs and the government actually make. They don't like me saying.
So, yeah. In the
UK government are trying to...
They're in a tyranny, right? So that's why I wanted to save this video and play, is because this is a guy who is an entrepreneur and he makes money by selling courses, teaching people how to make money and save money on their taxes, right? Well, that's not good enough for the British tyranny today and Keir Starmer's government. No. In that parliament, you must be charged for any kind of free speech or any kind of free commerce trying to help the people save money. No. Taking money from the king means you shall be treated as a criminal while your country gets raped by illegal immigration, Muslims, and Mossad and Jews. Everybody else will commit crimes, and then when you try to make people free financially, you will be in trouble for it. Take a look at this video.
To close my business down. They don't like me teaching people how to become a millionaire and how to pay no tax to the government. They're talking about me in Parliament. They're threatening me. I'm receiving letters. So I've decided I have no choice but to stop selling these programs and to just stop running this course. I mean, it's weird because...
Yep, and if this is happening in the UK, it's coming to the United States real soon. Just know that.
They'll back that. Pay tens of thousands of pounds going to university to learn about business from a lecturer who never had a business,
So
but when
true.
I come and I've got a program, it's £997. Comes with money back guarantees and everything. I've been running it for years. I've got thousands of happy customers that are making hundreds of thousands, some millions of pounds. But because they're structuring their business where they're not having to pay taxes legally, it's what all rich people do. It's what the MPs and the government actually make. They don't like me saying it. So I can't sell the course anymore. I'm going to stop selling it. But
total tyranny, whether this is a marketing campaign or not. Honestly, I can see this happening. Again, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is just obviously some marketing campaign. It could be. Either way, it's like, it is something to think about. Like, they are really doing this, though. This is a real thing that's actually happening because people are educating others on how to save money. All of these things are happening today. You're really getting in trouble for this stuff.
They don't want me to sell it. They don't want you to do it. They're so desperate for that not to happen. Talking about it in House of Parliament, it's all publicly available. But I'm not selling it. But you know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to give it away for free. Now, they can't stop you going on a free course. They can't stop me selling. I'm not even selling it. It's free. Free. So if you want to know how to do that and how to get in on it, how to get supported, mentored, trained.
So if you're a Brit, if you're from the UK, then definitely sign up for his course. Again, that guy is Samuel Leeds on X. Just saw his account today, but follow him. Breaking, Iraq officially declares its entry into the war alongside Iran against the United States and Israel. We have decided to respond and defend ourselves against the attacks targeting our popular mobilization force. This comes as Israel and the U.S. continue to launch raids on PMF headquarters, killing numerous leaders. So now Iraq is involved. Isn't it great? Thank you, Israel. Appreciate you. Thank you for doing this to America. It wasn't enough when we got into the first war for Israel. It wasn't enough that we took the oil. It wasn't enough. 9/11, no. It wasn't enough that we gave up JFK and all of our presidents. No. They need to take this too. They need to take our American golden age. They got to take our sovereignty, our independence, and everybody else's independence. And then, hey, they'll be the victims. They'll be the bad guys. Oh, they'll be the poor Israeli people. No, not anymore. They will be held accountable. Here's what happened in the Iran war in the past week. What are your thoughts on this? Another update from Alex Barnicoat. This is just 4 hours ago.
So we've just finished another week of the war in Iran, and here's all of the most important things that have happened, which you've probably forgotten about. First, Russia has provided more support to Iran this week than throughout the entire war in the last month. First, Russia actually condemned the US and demanded accountability for them bombing the girls' school in Iran, which killed 170 young schoolgirls. As well as that, Russia has provided more satellite imagery to Iran of US and Israeli locations than throughout the entire war. Russia remains a loyal friend and a reliable partner to Iran. And they also called for an investigation into the US's strike onto Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. So Russia has condemned the US and they're supporting Iran more than ever. But a lot more has happened. It seems like in the last week, Iran has become more open to the idea of speaking and having negotiations. Maybe not with the US, but with other countries. For example, Iran is now allowing oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz if they pay $2 million. As well as that, the President Pezeshkian this week also said he's open to having dialogue with other Gulf countries to have peace with them, rather than attacking them like they have been. But it's not all positive. We have reports that the US has 10,000 troops on the way to Iran, and they plan to seize Karg Island as early as next week, possibly. This will be US troops on the ground, meaning the war will absolutely go on for possibly years. As well as that, Iran has started carrying out more attacks onto the US and Israel. Even last night, Iran carried out 3 of the biggest missile strikes I think I've ever seen in the last few years, covering all of the wars around the world. These strikes injured at least 180 Israelis. They also launched a missile strike at the British Diego Garcia military base in the Chagos Islands in the Indian Ocean. They used missiles to do that we didn't even know they had. We thought Iran's missiles capped out at 2,000 kilometers. Turns out the Diego Garcia military base is double that, 4,000 kilometers away. They missed at the base and they didn't hit it, but still they prove they have the missiles. As well as that, a lot of Europe is starting to distance themselves from the US too, because they realise they don't want to get involved in this war. And so they're not allowing the US to use their airspace or territory to carry out attacks onto Iran. At the minute, it's kind of just the UK, the US and Israel against Iran. The three musketeers that it normally is, to be fair. They seem to be getting more aggressive. Iran, on the other hand, seems to be happy to negotiate with other countries that are not helping those three musketeers.
Going to be interesting to see how this unfolds.
That's pretty much everything that's happened in the last week. I expect next week to get a lot worse as those American troops possibly arrive. And so, leave me a follow, because I'm going to keep you up to date, as I have been, on everything that happens in this situation in the middle.
I think it's going to be a completely clusterfuck. I think they're going to send those troops over to Karg Island, and then the entire island's just going to get nuked. They're just going to be waiting for it. They already know that they're coming. I mean, I don't know what the plan. I just don't know what the game plan is here. I don't know how they're going to send the troops. There's Chinooks, and they're going to get shot out of the sky. They're just going to. This is a dangerous war, and obviously we pray for everybody involved, even the Israeli people who are doing all of this to everybody. We pray for them as well, because this is so evil, and this is a war that helps nobody. It benefits nobody. Pope Leo hosts exorcist summit at the Vatican over fears of worldwide surge in Satanism. Yeah, that's definitely real. Spent 24 years perfecting investing process for family and clients, sharing that blueprint for free. Download the 52-page ebook today. It's called Master the Market, a hedge fund manager's guide to process and profit by Keith McAuliffe. Be sure to get that book. No Limit just stated oil crash to 86 butts. Something big is about to happen. Belgian radio giggle after publicly destroying statues of Jesus Christ. When asked if they would destroy Islamic symbols or Jewish symbols, they said they would not do that and that they don't think it would be appropriate. But Christian symbols, it's okay. Look at the double standards. See, nobody's got a problem when you say anything bad about Islam, you say anything bad about Christianity, or you say anything bad about you say all these things about all these other religions. No problem. But Christianity, oh God. Listen to this. This is unbelievable.
I saw in one part you had a statue of Jesus. Now, I know you laugh, but do you think that for many listeners, they would find that so deeply offensive to take a bat and to smash Jesus into pieces?
Wasn't it Madonna, by the way? No, it was... No.
There was one, I think, of Madonna and the child, and there was one of Jesus.
So that's a very good question, because I think it might offend people. I think in Belgium, not really. We're not a very religious country.
That is so sad. That is so sad to hear people talking this way about the Christ, the true God. And they say, yeah, we're going to destroy all the Christian stuff because, it's Christianity. But, Islam, though, we have a lot of people in Islam, and we don't want to offend those Islam people. And we have a lot of Jews who live in Belgium, so we don't want to offend the Jews. But those Christians, just crush all of their stuff. Christians, we don't need to be worrying about the Christians. It's not a big deal. Nobody's a Christian in Belgium. But we are Jewish and we are Islam, so we don't attack that. It's like, talk about the psychological warfare on top of the Christian communities today, right? The Christians of society in today's time are taking all of the flack, all of the hits. Look at this.
Definitely not the listeners of Studio Brussels, but what we did, all the things we smashed, we made it very clear as well that these were all things that were already broken. So the statue, it was turned face towards the back of the room, so you wouldn't see the face as well, because it was a broken statue as well.
But I love how they're acting all mature, and the way that their responses are all mature, and like they're just normal people and good contributing people to society, and really that these are total heathens. These people should be hanged for blasphemy.
I think
that's how I
would have been more careful in another country. Definitely in Belgium, it is not a big issue.
Let me ask you this: if you were doing the video again, would you smash a symbol of the Prophet Muhammad?
That is a very dangerous one.
You wouldn't do it. Why not?
No, you wouldn't, would you, you pussy? Because you know that your country is being overtaken by Muslims, and you're not afraid to just cuck and bend over for the Islamic Muslim religion. But as soon as you need to stand up and defend Christianity in a country that's being overtaken by Muslims, oh God, you don't have the balls to do that, do you?
No, because that would be inappropriate, because in Belgium there are many...
But there are Christians too. I know the Pope...
What a bunch of cowards. They couldn't care less that there's a bunch of Christians, though. Listen to her response.
Visited Belgium recently.
No, I know they're Christians, but it's since we are all from the Christian tradition, I think it's like laughing with yourself, or like
you would never do it with.
That is called self-suicide. That is called cultural suicide, and that is how you destroy your country. When you lose your identity, you lose the real religion of your actual. When you start laughing at the idea of, literally breaking Christian memorabilia, that kind of stuff. You start breaking the cross, you start swinging a baseball bat on the Virgin Mary in a smash room, but you don't do the same to Muhammad or to the Jewish star. Why? Because, there's Jewish people in my country. Well, there's Muslim people in my country, but there's not that many Christians, so we don't really care to express our feelings about Christians. It's like, you people suck. Like, these people are the worst of humanity, and they make humanity worse. These people should all be, like, rounded up and basically treated as slaves. That's kind of how I feel.
Muhammad,
Crusades, we need them
Star
again.
of David for Judaism.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, you wouldn't mess with the Star of David, right? Because you're pussies. You're pussies. You will never mess with the Jews or the Muslims because they're taking over your country right now. But you will literally destroy your own religion, of which you admit is your religion. You cowards, you pussies, you have no respect for yourselves, and this is how the entire world is dying right now. Basically, cultural genocide. That's what it's called, cultural genocide. Iran reports U.S.-Israel strike on its Bushehr nuclear power plant grounds. That was 4 hours ago. This is breaking Hunter Biden-level corruption in the Trump White House amid Iran war exposed. This is Colonel Douglas McGregor and what he had to say about it. Let's listen.
Oil would tank. That was a bet of about.
Let's watch
well,
this
I think
video.
we have
It's
to
a good take.
understand that we're dealing with Hunter Biden levels of corruption now in the Trump White House. Let me explain why. You put the oil trade up there. There was a bet that the price of oil would tank. That was a bet of about 150 million. Another bet was placed that the market would lift, in other words, rise dramatically. That was a $1.5 billion bet. Now, whenever you bet in the market, which is effectively what it's about, it's a big casino. For those who are only in it for casino purposes, as opposed to others that draw income from it over time. What we need to understand is that you bet less on the downside and bet more on the upside. So the $150 million bet paid off because somebody within 3 or 4 minutes of President Trump's announcement knew what President Trump was going to announce.
Oh, I think it was Howard Lutnick. It was somebody like Howard Lutnick. It was somebody who was always over Trump's shoulder, knowing exactly what's going on. And we have to look at who's already benefiting from these kind of things. Okay, who makes all the money all the time? It's always Howard Lutnick. We should look right at him because he's the one who's always making the money from World Liberty Fi. He's the one who's making all of the money from the tariff buybacks. And now this guy and these people around Trump need to be convicted for life. They should never have freedom again. They should be thrown into a gulag. They should be made an example of. They should have torturous things done to them because, honestly, this level of treason should never be tolerated or accepted, Democrat or Republican. You should be made an example of this level of treason. Let's go on.
0.05 billion bet that you've got up there now. Both of these bets paid off handsomely. Now, who in the White House could possibly have known?
Howard Lutnick.
And who in the White House has access to that kind of capital that could have a stupendous impact on profits? Well, I'll let everybody in the audience sort of let that sink in, think about it, and understand that in a normal setting, were this to happen, I would say 50 years ago, 100 years ago, maybe
Honestly,
even
so
30
insane.
years ago, the Attorney General would be sitting at his desk or her desk and receive a note saying, we have witnessed this unnatural market behavior that's resulting in mega profits. And it all seems to come right before the president makes an announcement. We feel this justifies an investigation.
Seriously, it's insider
Well, I don't
trading.
think with Pam Bondi in there's any chance of that investigation happening on the executive side.
Absolutely
Now, then
not.
the question is, well, what about Congress? Will someone in Congress stand up and say, look at this, this is outrageous?
No, they're all
Maybe,
bought
but
off by
it's
Israel.
unlikely that it will gain much traction because the population of people that sit on the Hill in Congress are busy with insider trading.
Yep.
In other words, everyone in Washington is profiting one way or another from the disasters that are unfolding in front of us on the Hill and here, in the Middle East and here at home. So
Absolutely.
I really, really want the MAGA crowd to pay attention to this, because they've been taken in badly by this president.
It's a very real thing.
Misused, abused, and exploited. They need to wake up and understand the kind of Hunter Biden level of corruption that they're dealing with in the Trump White House.
Yeah, total corruption that we're seeing. Again, these people like Howard Lutnick need to be made an example of. They should never get to wear a suit and be walking around with a smug little smile on their face. They should be made examples of. Things I can't even say on this live stream because I'll be banned. But that is what they, there used to be a certain way we dealt with traitors and people who committed treason and corruption against their own people. Just a tall tree and a short rope. It used to be a very simple solution, right? Turning Point USA is warning Americans against conducting independent investigations into Charlie Kirk's murder, calling it too dangerous. Why? Why is it too dangerous for people to investigate your husband's death, Erica Kirk? What is the deal? You don't want people to learn about the Romanian angels, Erica Kirk? You don't want people to learn about your trafficking operations? You don't want people to learn about your time spent in the CIA and the Air Force Military Academy? You don't want people to learn about all of these things? You don't want people to learn about your ex-boyfriends, of which you basically got rich with while you were with Charlie completely? You don't want people to find out about the $130 million that somehow didn't go to Charlie Kirk but ended up in the pocket of TPUSA? I got a lot of questions for you, Erica Kirk, but you won't answer them because you don't want people asking them, right? Okay. More footage from Tel Aviv. Again, this comes from Mario Nawfal. This is 4 hours ago. Let's take a look at this. Start this over. So again, this is coming from Tel Aviv, Israel, just 4 hours ago. And they're surprised. The Israelis are surprised that they're being bombed. They're surprised. They're actually surprised by it. Walmart is rolling out digital price tags in every store. Prices can now change across the entire chain in seconds. Start taking pictures of shelf prices. They might be different by the time you get to the register. This is inflation on autopilot.
As some are worried that having the ability to quickly adapt price labels on the fly could lead to things like demand-based pricing that shifts prices for higher 100%. Or lower depending on how changing dynamics happen for supply chains.
Oh, it's going to get so bad, guys.
Some lawmakers are already in the process
This is going to get so bad. Yeah, you're literally going to be grabbing an item from the shelf. It's going to be $9.97. And then by the time you get to the register, it's going to be like $13. And it's going to be that level of crazy. And people are going to be, this is going to cause madness in the streets. I mean, they I don't know what they're doing, but they certainly want the masses to go insane. They want there to be some kind of civil war. They want there to be some kind of uprising, some kind of revolution. They certainly are trying to really make this happen. It's almost like they don't want to do time in prison, so they'd rather the world burn and the entire system collapse.
Legislation to ban the use of digital shelf labels or DS.
So that's just wild. Again, South Korea begins fuel rationing and driving bans. People can only drive 1 day per week and will be enforced with license plate readers. Again, 6 hours ago, Israel just bombed one of the most important places in Lebanon. What do you think about this? Let's take a look at this video.
Why Israel is doing this. And to be fair, you need to know what that is. Israel just bombed one of the most important places in Lebanon, and this could cause a war. Well, today, videos came out of Israel carrying out dozens of airstrikes onto bridges in southern Lebanon. Not just any bridges, though, bridges that are crossing the Litani River, the river between Israel and Lebanon. But you need to know there's a reason why Israel is doing this, and to be fair, you need to know what that is. Well, Israel is actually bombing these bridges as it's one of the only ways for Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon to cross the border and attack Israeli soldiers. And if there's no bridges, it cuts the supply lines. It means that Hezbollah can't get any support, and really, the attacks just stop. Attacking bridges and things like that is one of the main ways that armies are able to stop and fight against each other. Back in World War II, D-Day, for example, when Britain invaded back into France to defeat the Nazis, they did the same thing, and they took control of the bridges. Before the British and American ships landed on the beaches of Normandy, hours before that, British paratroopers had landed and seized control of the bridges around there. The reason they took control of those bridges was so that the Germans could not bring in reinforcements to defend the beaches. And so Israel is just doing a similar thing like that, and they are blowing up bridges so the Hezbollah cannot organize supply lines to reinforce their attacks against Israel. And so this is actually quite interesting, and you can leave me a follow because I'm going to keep you up to date on not only all the global news.
We will see what happens with those developments. According to Disclosed TV, the Pentagon is to order within the next hours 3,000 troops of the Army's elite 82nd Airborne Division to deploy to the Middle East. Yes, we've been covering that story tonight. Big news. 79 years old with 5 children, 11 grandchildren walking into Elvis's home. The left can't stand this. This is pretty cool. Our president, Donald Trump, he's an old man now, but he's out here representing Elvis Presley. Got a lot of kids. Quite the legacy. If only we didn't get ourselves involved in a war, Trump. You could have really had a great presidency and you ruined it because you wanted to bend over. You wanted to drop your pants and bend over for the state of Israel, Donald Trump. And now Israel owns you. We could have had a great thing. As Americans, we could have really had something awesome. Supporting Israel is hearsay. The Talmud is blasphemy. Orthodox Christian minister doesn't mince words. So let's listen to him.
Of course, by implication, the duty of all. But we're also seeing American politicians claiming that it is the Christian duty to do so, to support Israel. And then, of course, by implication, the duty of all Christian listeners in America to show this unwavering support for Israel. This is a modern heresy.
Yeah, totally.
We must be clear, Israel, the people of God, is the Orthodox Church.
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at things objectively. Okay, what does Israel do when you go to Israel? They spit at Christians. Okay, they are the antichrists. They don't believe in Christianity. They don't believe that Jesus Christ, God, is the Messiah. They run from God. They struggle with God. Did you know that the meaning of Israel is to struggle with God? Did you know that? Okay, quite literally, this is the inversion of Christianity. Okay, the Christian Zionism and the evangelical Christians out there who are talking about pro-Zionism, these are misled and uneducated Christians who have been completely subverted and turned away from God, and they've been brainwashed and psychologically controlled and manipulated into believing a false form of Christianity, when this truly is the real form of Christianity. Orthodox Christianity, Catholicism, this is what real Christianity is, not the beliefs of the Talmud, the Torah, the Noahide laws. All of these things are false. This is a false God. This is the God of what I would believe is the devil.
There is no special dispensation outside of Christ. True. And those who reject him, reject Christ, whether Jew or Gentile, True. Reject salvation. Christians must know that the Talmud blasphemes Christ. It blasphemes the Mother of God.
100%. Yes, it does.
There is no separate. A
lot of people don't talk about it. The Jews literally believe that Christ is burning in hell. The Jews believe that the Christians should be spat at, that they are like cattle, that they are basically Gentiles, and that Gentiles can be stolen from, that they can be killed, and all of these horrible things. Basically everything against the Ten Commandments, the laws of Moses, and what these Jews claim to be the holders of, the key holders of, the gatekeepers of. All of this false. They have inverted the real religion of Christianity into Zionism in efforts to conquer this land of which they are doing now, when they really have no belief in God. Many Jews are atheists, and it's a precursor to becoming a Jew is to become an atheist. Very interesting stuff, isn't it?
No second, no different salvation. The economy of God is in Jesus Christ alone.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. Because all the other religions, by the way, call for violence. Like, it's like, listen, I want to believe that the Muslims do believe in Jesus Christ like they say they do. They say they believe in Jesus Christ as a prophet. Maybe the videos I see on Twitter X of all of these Muslims in the UK cutting people's heads off, and maybe these videos I see of these people, you know, trying to grope little 14-year-old girls, maybe these videos of Muslims that I see on X, you know, maybe these are all Israel Mossad people. Maybe these are infiltrators of the Muslim religions, of the mosques. But from the videos I've seen, it seems like they also hate Christians. Muslims seem to also have this thing against Christians. And what's even more interesting about this conversation is that the Jews consider the Muslims the broomstick of the West. Yes, they consider Muslims the broomstick of the West, to use Muslims to basically wipe out Christianity. And in the battle called Goga and Magoa, basically the war of the Christians against the Muslims, the Jews will profit from this war, and they will not have to basically endure any kind of pain. They will sit on the sidelines and watch the Christians and the Muslims, what they consider Edom and Ishmael, kill each other. And whoever rises and ascends, the Jews will rule over them. And so that's the story of Zionism. And that's really what's being pushed today. And so as the real Christians, you must reject that belief. You must believe the Catholic doctrines, and you must remember that Jesus Christ is God, and that Christianity is the only religion that stands for forgiveness, that Christianity is the only religion that allows the human mind to transcend beyond the earthly desires, and every other religion keeps you at earthly desires. Every other religion is a hostile religion in many ways, because for those who don't believe in that religion, they believe that those people should just be killed. We as Christians don't believe that. We believe that if you're not a Christian, then you will one day, you know, find your vision and you'll find your way to Christianity. But we also don't believe that you should be killed for that. We believe it's a sin to murder somebody. But in jihad and in the Muslim faith and the Jewish faith, they believe that non-Jews, or if you are a non-Muslim, then you deserve to be killed or to be made a slave out of. And the Christians, why is that Christianity is the only religion that doesn't have this belief, this Old Testament kind of belief? Well, is it because it's the real religion? It's because it was always meant to be the revolutionary religion into the future? When Christ died, think about it. Our entire timeline was changed based on Jesus Christ's life. To this day, we go by before Christ's birth and then after Christ's death. Okay, BC and AD. So our entire timeline is based off of the Christian timeline. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's more Christians on this earth than anybody, than any other religion? And then they argue, well, Islam is growing second place. Yeah, that is because they are growing in numbers. The average Islamic family, the average Muslim has 10 kids. So in one Muslim family, one Arabic Muslim family, they have about 10 to 12 kids each. And so, yes, absolutely. And then same thing with the Jews in Brooklyn, the Hasidic Jews, they're living off of the welfare system. They don't even have to go serve their country because they, under the guides of the law, are allowed to only study the Torah and never have to go fight in a war or be drafted or conscripted. But white European men, Christians, you will be drafted to go fight in this war, to fight and die for the state of Israel, told that it is for a biblical prophecy when it is really just for some Abraham Accord real estate. And a little bit of Gaza real estate. New Gaza, Trump Gaza, right? That's what this is really about. And so anybody who's saying anything else, they just don't understand what's actually going on. So going deeper in, let's look at some of these other videos. No one is going to believe us when we try to explain President Trump and the future generations. I thought this video was funny. Look at this.
And I just want to thank you because you're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you.
He's talking about Elizabeth Warren. That was some funny shit. There will never be another like Trump. Breaking news, Israel just admitted since the start of the war with Iran, 4,697 people have been injured in Israel. What do you think about this? So, pretty crazy.
By 3 Iranian missiles. That is how damaging these Iranian missiles were. But I will say, these were the biggest Iranian missile attacks I had ever seen. These were probably some of the most damaging missiles I've ever seen. Too.
Yeah, and that was 8 hours ago.
Netanyahu and Isaac Herzog, the president, they visited those bomb sites from last night, and they used it as an opportunity to accuse Iran of war crimes, etc. But still, the Israeli Health Ministry today came out and reported that at least 4,697 Israelis were injured and had to go to hospital because of the war in Iran. I will say the vast majority of those were minor injuries and they've been released from hospital. A few dozen are still in hospital,
so the war's going on.
Do have critical injuries. But in general, most of those injuries were minor injuries, like shattered glass from missile explosions, etc. But still, it's worth knowing about because Israel doesn't usually admit the damage they're taking, but now they have. And they've taken quite a lot, especially after last night when Iran carried out those massive attacks onto Iraq. And so, leave me a follow because I'm going to cover...
Yeah, Alex Barnicoat, leave him a follow. The United States is insolvent, according to the U.S. Treasury. So lots of big news here. And then we get back into some of the stories that I already covered this morning on the original Brendan Ecker channel. Be sure to subscribe to that, by the way. We covered a lot of what's happening in the news already. We covered a lot of the newer business stories. That's what I cover on my main channel, Brendan Ecker on YouTube. Again, that channel has like 27,000 subs, but we're already moving pretty good on that. So again, we just got news of the airplane crash in New York yesterday. What do you think about this? So another video by Alex Barnicoat here. Let's take one more look. Let's see what the breaking news is. 44 minutes ago.
We just got details of the airplane crash in New York yesterday, and these details are so bad that the mayor of New York is being
killing it on the
threatened with being
content.
kicked out of office. So what's happened? Well, yesterday, a CRJ 900 aircraft crashed into a fire truck at LaGuardia Airport in New York. It was flying from Montreal to LaGuardia. It was landing on runway 4, and about 11:40 p.m. at night, the fire truck pulled out in front of it, and the aircraft crashed into it. And because of the mismanagement at this airport, which allowed for a fire truck to pull out in front of an aircraft, people are calling on the mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani, to step down. Polymarket, for example, a place where you can predict world events, predicts that there's an 8% chance that Zoran Mamdani will be kicked out of office by the end of the year.
He'll
that
be
percent
rewarded.
has risen since this aircraft crash. Now, so far, at least 2 people
for this. They'll reward Mamdani for this.
Are dead, both the pilots and the co-pilots of the plane. The plane crashed into the fire truck at 24 miles per hour, and 32 out of the 41 injured have been allowed to leave hospital because of minor injuries. 9 others, though, sadly are still in hospital with serious injuries. The 2 officers on board the fire truck, who are part of those 9 still in hospital, have suffered serious injuries, but non-life-threatening injuries. That is all we know so far, but still, this is not a good look for New York. After the crash, the airport was closed and flights diverted. But still, this isn't a great look, and we're going to have an investigation into how this was able to happen. But you can leave me a follow, because I'm going to keep you up to date.
Yeah, so that's some pretty wild content. Again, the Oakland County Sheriff is going viral because he wanted to try and fight the First Amendment. He wanted to fight against the First Amendment, this guy. And let me tell you, so again, people are saying that he was a Wisconsin County Sheriff. This is an Oakland County Sheriff in Michigan. And I've actually met this guy. He's a nice guy. Actually, I didn't know that he was Jewish, apparently. I had no idea. But calling all Oakland County and Michigan residents, we must stop this evil now before it gets worse. Go make a complaint to your Secretary of State and Attorney's office. Evil will not prevail in this country. We will not fight our heart out to get this POS out of office. So a lot of people are not happy because this guy got this other dude fired, because all he did was create a meme of the Oakland County Sheriff. And the Oakland County Sheriff, because he wasn't, basically he was, bending over for all of the, incidents happening on Israel and not talking about the real genocide that Israel is actually committing on, Gaza and the Christian villages in Lebanon, right? And so I'm against this guy too for this. What a pussy, what a pansy. You're a coward, you're not a man, and you should never consider yourself a man. Hopefully you see this, because honestly, it's shameful. It's quite shameful. Right, you're going to get somebody in trouble because they made a meme of you, and you're going to abuse your power as a cop, as law enforcement, to do this to somebody to ruin their life because you didn't like what they had to say. Fuck you. Fuck you. You deserve to lose your shorts. You deserve to lose your shirt. You deserve to lose, everything, because honestly, you are trying to take away somebody's livelihood for a meme. And again, nobody else's freedom of speech ends where your feelings begin, law enforcement. And that is the worst thing about law enforcement, is that, you have cops with an ego like this. And it's like, at the end of the day, no, it's like freedom of speech. And we are in a political era where this stuff is rather important. So not good.
This is our county. Please go onto the criminal complaint and inquiry form and make a complaint to the Secretary of State. Together we can get rid of this guy. You're from Oakland County. This is our
Yeah,
sheriff.
seriously though. I mean, like, I don't hate the guy. I think he's a decent guy overall. I've met him before, but dude, if you're gonna be such a pussy to get somebody fired because they made a meme about you, you deserve to you deserve the Streisand effect. You deserve everybody to talk about you even harder, and you deserve every meme that you're gonna get. That's kind of how I feel. The freedom of speech does not end because your feelings begin. No. Not how it works.
In righteousness doth he judge and make war. Did you?
I can only hear so much Christian Zionism. Christian Zionism is false. It's total brainwashing. So again, when we're looking at all the news here and we're looking at these stories popping up, what are we studying from this? What are we studying from the algorithm? What are we really learning? We're learning that this algorithm is really, it seems like it's trying to get people ramped up for war.
The 82nd's a light infantry parachute.
We have Jesse Waters hyping you up to go to war with Iran.
And can deploy anywhere in the world in less than 18 hours. Central Command has already bombed a ton of targets on Karg Island. You'd expect the paratroopers to drop in at night.
How many people think there's going to be just a total influx of military movies made? So many Hollywood military movies made. They're going to make all the Chris Kyle kind of movies, right? You know what I'm talking about? American Sniper, We Were Soldiers. All the best propaganda war films are going to start being made again. All of a sudden. Why? Because they want this war to happen. They need this war to happen. They know this is going to be a 20-year war, so that's just my prediction. Look out for all of the movies that are going to be coming out soon. I'm talking about the Iran war and getting people hyped up for it. It's going to be really interesting to see how that all works.
Secure airfields, do a quick repair job on the Strip, and pave the way for the Air Force and Marines to deliver more men, armor, and gear. It's risky,
yeah, Iran has a whole city underground, basically. They have military bases underground, and we're going to go and fight them over in the Middle East. That's real genius, real genius. Iran just destroyed a hotel in Iraq filled with U.S. personnel in Iraq, declared war on the U.S. and Israel. This is just 40 minutes ago while I was streaming. Let's take a look at this. This is Ryan Mata's account. I've been liking his content. Let's look at this.
So we got some big breaking news coming in. In Iraq, a hotel was just taken out that allegedly had U.S. personnel staying in it, and now Iraq has completely joined the war with Iran against Israel and the United States. So Iraq openly declared war on Israel and America, and now you're watching all of these Gulf allies that are starting to wake up really quick, and Trump still hasn't got the Strait open. So now these are kind of like just the bare minimum demands that Rick Sanchez is saying, that Iran holds all the Trump cards here. Like the Persian Gulf, get it? Right? And that's why it's called Persian, right? But a ceasefire alone won't be enough for Iran. Iran needs to demand the lifting of sanctions, reparations, and a formal apology. I think that's what all of us are kind of on the same page, that Trump fucked up, Trump started this war, and now it's going to be on Trump to fall on this sword. And
well, Netanyahu started this war. I mean, Israel started this war. This is totally 100% Israel's war first. Then I would say Trump, he chose to bend over and go along with this war. Trump chose to go along with it, but really this is Israel's war. This is for their benefit, not America's benefit. I don't even think Trump wanted to attack Iran, so.
Fault for this one. This was his fault, but who's he going to blame it on? I blame it on Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth, Susie Wiles, every one of the dual citizen Israelis around you. That would be suffice, Trump. If you came out and just said, you know what? I've been being blackmailed, bribed by these scumbags. Here's how the entire operation works. I'm going to lay it all out, and I'm going to fall on this sword. He'd go down in history as the greatest president to ever live. Yep. If not, he's going to go down as the biggest schmuck sellout, George Bush 2.0 loser.
Oh, even worse. Even worse than that.
Even finish out his term. But let me know what you guys think. Check out this video from Rick.
Who has the upper hand right now? The Iranians would probably argue, and notwithstanding your great story about what happened with the leaders of Rwanda, the Iranians have a real trump card here, and it's the Persian Gulf. Yeah. They control access to the Persian Gulf. As long as they're there, they can keep the Persian Gulf closed, unclosed, partly closed, open.
Yep.
It's their call. That's why it's called.
It's why they're saying that this is a war of attrition.
The Persian Gulf. And Mr. Trump has to figure out a way to placate that with them. So it's not about just ending the war. If you and I are just thinking this through, and we're game theorying it, and I think we're pretty smart guys. I think you're probably smarter than I am. But when it comes to working on something like this, you have to ask yourself what the Iranians want. And if the argument is that all the Iranians want is please leave us alone and stop bombing us, I would say no. They need more than that. They need if the Americans want the Iranians to back off, which I think they obviously do, they need to tell the Iranians, okay,
we're going to lift the sanctions, and we're going to give you some reparations. We're going to help you fix all the stuff that we've broken.
Right. That is exactly what we should do.
There's probably going to be some kind of apology, and you got to lift the sanctions that have been destroying our economy, which is what you yourself said caused the protest that led to this whole thing.
And that's honestly a pretty good deal after we just bombed a school of 195 Iranian schoolgirls.
That's what they're going to ask for. Now, I'm not in those negotiations. If they're having negotiations and they're not asking for that, they're fools, right?
Right. So, what do you guys think about the Iran war? What do you guys think about all of this? This was the footage we've been looking at. This is pretty much all the breaking news that we've been dealing with, right? So let's take a look at this video real quick.
Affects the entire Middle East. And this is not just a meme worn on patches by the IDF. In Trump's first term, he secured the Golan Heights for Israel. No international body before that had recognized the Golan Heights as Israeli. As of last year, 81% of the West Bank is occupied by Israelis. Gaza has been completely destroyed, and most of the population is either dead or has been pushed out of Gaza. And now there are investment plans to rebuild Gaza into something that can be basically controlled by Israel.
Why is Israel?
This is so fucked up. Like, if this was America and we had just been ethnically cleansed by another country, like literally 80% wiped out, everybody in this country. Imagine your neighbors, everybody wiped out, raped, kidnapped, families destroyed, divided, all of this shit. Imagine that. And then you are made to be the bad guy. There's a debate now on whether or not you ever deserved that land, whether or not you ever deserved to live. I mean, insane. Just because this satanic group of people at this current time in history chose to do what they did to their neighbors of how many decades, who took these Israeli people in, The Palestinians took the Israeli people in 1947. They've lived with them all this time. And then what did the Israeli people do? They slaughtered them like cattle. They did everything that happened to them in World War II. They became the real Nazis. And then they call you a Nazi and an anti-Semite if you question them for doing the same things that Hitler did. And here we now are learning that a lot of the things that they say Hitler did may not have even happened. So who is the real origin of this genocidal race? Who is the real genocidal race here? Well, maybe it just might be Israel. Maybe it just might be Israel. Maybe it might not be the battled Germans or the battled Americans. Maybe the real anti-Semites were always the Jews. Were always the Israeli people who seem to want to ethnically cleanse the real Semitic Jews, the Palestinians, from their land. Maybe it was always the truth of this that we were never supposed to talk about or know. So messed up.
I accuse you of being an anti-Semite.
Naftali Bennett says that Turkey is a rising threat to Israel, so maybe they'll have to crush Turkey next.
Turkey is the new Iran.
Mike Huckabee says that Israel should control the entire Middle East.
That would include, basically the entire Middle East. It would be fine if they took it all.
Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid says that Israel should control as much land as possible. In fact, Theodore Herzl said this in 1896. Chaim Azriel Weizmann would not define Israel's borders or its goals. In 1982, the former Israeli Foreign Minister Oded Yanon published the 1982 Zionist Plan for the Middle East, which includes Israel controlling or occupying most of the Middle East. In 1996, the Institute for Advanced Strategic Political Studies published a report called the Clean Break Memo, Strategy for Securing the Realm. It talked about weakening every single nation that is around Israel. Almost all of the people working in this think tank went on to have positions in George Bush's administration post-2001. Now Israel's planning on creating a buffer zone in Lebanon up until the Litani River.
And they say that America did this to other countries. No, we didn't actually. The difference is we built up these other countries. We actually created great things for these countries. We brought evolution and innovation and industrialism. We brought the genius and enlightenment. And what do the Israeli people do? They tear things down. They tear everything down. They destroy. That's the difference. I don't see any history where we destroyed this country. I saw us building this country up when we came to the New World, when we came to the America, when my ancestors came across the Atlantic. They came here, they shook hands with the Native Americans. They came here, they had meals with the Native Americans. They came here, they traded gunpowder, they traded horses, they traded bow and arrows, they traded everything. They worked together. They built communities, they built buildings, they built roads. And what are the Israelis doing? They're tearing everything down. They're bombing it. So why is this acceptable? It isn't. and it won't be. And the American people and the real people with conscience and soul and high IQ will fight back against this, and the Jewish people will not succeed in their endeavors here. There will not be a Jewish state so long as the Jewish state is occupied by means of evil and ways of which are not true settlement, which are just complete genocide. There is a difference. America, we created what we created by truly
Jerusalem Post
building.
floated the idea of annexing and settling southern Lebanon, and Israel creating a buffer zone. The author was Michael Freund, Netanyahu's former communications director. The Likud government has repeatedly stated that they plan to make Israel into a global power.
These achievements are increasing the status of Israel as a superpower more than ever.
As long as people don't push back, it will continue happening.
Is the greatest threat to Israel's regional hegemony? It's Iran. Not because Iran will nuke Israel, simply because Israel cannot expand its borders if Iran is backing proxies which prevent this. Israeli settlers will take the West Bank. This has been a dispute with every American administration back to the 1970s. Donald Trump says that he won't allow Israel to take the West Bank, but they basically already have. Israel is still bombing Lebanon, it's still bombing Gaza, and it's still bombing Syria. Gutless.
And by the way, not just bombing them. They're bombing them with white phosphorus over the skies. White phosphorus is sulfuric acid, which melts the skin and the bones. That is what is happening. Could you imagine acid rain falling down on you and then your skin melting down to your bones? This is stuff that's happening in Lebanon. It is so bad. It is so evil. They can't even put it on X. You can't even see it. You can't even see the evil and the danger and the horror of what's happening over there in Lebanon, what's happening over there in Gaza to these people. It's so bad. It's so violent and gory, you can't even see it. That is how evil it is that's happening. And we're sitting here being gaslit, told that Israel is the greatest country on earth, that Israel is the #1 priority, that Israel. I say fuck Israel. I say fuck the apartheid state of Israel, of which believes in the unholiness of things, who believe in the destruction of Christianity, who believe in genociding the innocent instead of lifting up the innocent and helping the innocent. No. This is the anti-Christian race as of this current time. They sure are proud of it, and they act like it. They brag about it.
Short-sighted and traitorous American politicians are either too stupid or dishonest to realize the implications here. Once the United States has been used up to its last tax dollar or dead soldier, they will abandon the United States and they will be a regional power. And the United States will be a nation in decay, which it really already is. You, the people, should care, even if the politicians don't.
Yep.
Israeli leaders.
And the Jews believe that we will be slaves to them, that you will be a slave to the Jews under the Jewish New World Order. And all I know is I sure won't be.
Like,
bring on the war is what I say.
Conservatives are actually doing.
Bring on the war, because, it's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable. There's what is right, and then there is what is wrong. So what do you guys think about the war? What do you guys think about everything that's going on? This is pretty much what's happening. These are the biggest stories in the news. Iran tells the United States it does not want to resume talks with Witkoff and Kushner, prefers negotiating with President J.D. Vance instead CNN reports. Isn't that interesting? J.D. Vance all of a sudden is the guy that they want to talk to. So really, J.D. Vance is positioning himself for a 2028 campaign. J.D. Vance is going to be the one speaking out against this war because he wants to win the 2028 presidential campaign. Joe Kent will be speaking out against this war because he wants to win the 2028 presidential campaign. We understand both of these individuals are funded by Peter Thiel. Both of these individuals are funded by Silicon Valley. And ultimately, they're pro-Israel individuals. They're pro-Israel players. And ultimately, Joe Kent has been pushed out basically because he said we shouldn't be getting involved in this war with Israel. However, at the same time, he was the same person calling Nick Fuentes an anti-Semite and basically going against this entire movement of exposing the Israeli people, the Zionist movement, essentially, for what they're doing. So that's kind of where things are at. The truth behind feminism, educational purposes, and personal opinion only. Yeah, that's a good video, but we don't have time. We're pretty much out of time for the rest of these videos. So what do you guys think about everything happening today? What do you guys think about March 24th, 2026, and what's going on in the war today? What do you guys think? Ultimately, I think that the war with Iran is going to keep going. I don't think that the war with Iran is going to end anytime soon. And I think the most important thing for Americans is to wake up to the fact that Israel is taking over your country. They're getting you involved in a war that we don't need to be in as Americans. It's going to cost over $200 billion in taxpayer dollars, and it's not going to benefit the United States. And we should resist it at all costs if we care about securing our American golden age, if we care about having our own country still, if we care about Christianity and the innocent, and if we care about having a truly great country again, then we need to be independent, and we need to allow other countries to be independent. We need to not bomb other countries unprovoked on Israel's behalf. We need to stand up for the people of Gaza, the Palestinians who are being genocided, and the same way that we did in World War II, standing up for the Jews, fighting for the Jews against the mean old Germans, when we learned that all of that was not true, and that the Jews had really coordinated this entire war, basically so that they could profit. And then guess what? 20 million Europeans died. 6 million Jews essentially died in the Holocaust. Allegedly, we don't even know that to be a fact now. And we are told and preached to about how bad the Holocaust was. And today, if you even question the Holocaust, you're an anti-Semite. Meanwhile, at the same time, Israel is literally bombing Lebanon with white phosphorus bombs, which are melting people's skin right down to their bones. But no problem there. You know, it's okay to bomb Christian villages. It's okay to take Christianity out of the church. It's okay to kill Christians and do all of this stuff. But as long as you are supporting the Jewish war and the Iranian war that has nothing to do with the United States and gives no benefit to America, then you're good to go. You will be commended by the Trump administration, and you can call yourself America first. So what do you think about this Iran war? I think it's not good. I think we should get out of it. And I think as soon as possible, Trump needs to leave the Middle East. We need to do a strategic retreat. We need to target the Israeli desalination plants, and Israel or Iran should focus on this as well. And then we need to get out of the Middle East officially, finally, as Trump ran on, as he promised. And then we need to have our American golden age. That's how I feel. So be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe if this video gave you value. I'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. And let me know what you think. Stay prudent, stay powerful, stay safe, and stay wealthy.